We've all heard that running a business is hard, but you know what you really should be scratching your head over? Running an efficient business.
In today's episode, we're diving into why streamlined operations can make or break your success.
Hello and welcome to BizNest. My name is Francis.
And my name is Penny.
Oh
So
my
exciting.
goodness. I know, right? Joining us today is Virtua Solutions' very own Donn Barrera. He is right here. Oh my goodness. He's here with us to dive into the importance of streamlining our operations for business growth. So I get to have the pleasure of introducing my very own Don. He is our head of operations at Virtua Solutions Outsourcing, turning 18 years of dynamic leadership experience across various lines of business in the BPO industry. He's committed to delivering top-tier Filipino remote teams to onboard to clients and ensuring operational excellence and strategic growth. Don's expertise encompasses developing effective onboarding processes, streamlining operations, and providing client solutions. Hello, Don. Thank you
Hey,
so much
Hi,
Don.
for being with us today.
Francis. Hi, Penny. It's a pleasure
So
to be
happy
here
to
in
have you
business.
finally in
Thank you,
this
thank you.
podcast. I think we've tried to get our team in this podcast since season 2.
Yes,
right?
we have.
There
And,
is, yeah.
yeah, and it took an entire year of backstabbing, threats of
Yeah.
violence, and they
Torture.
finally
I
agreed.
didn't feel that
I-
way.
You didn't? What was the line that worked, Penny? I know where you live.
Yeah, but it's a privilege to be part of this amazing podcast. So I'm pretty much excited.
Today, we are exploring what streamlining operations really mean, why it's crucial for business growth, and how you can apply it in your startup.
And as always, do not forget to subscribe to Business so you can join the conversation on social media. Join us. So,
Yeah.
Don, how has it been since you've joined Virtua? So, I know I always ask you this question, and maybe you've given fake answers.
No.
Just kidding. But no, I'm kidding. But how has the experience been? So, how long has it been since you?
Well, it's been more than 2
More than a
years.
year. More than 2
Wow.
years.
2 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Time flies so fast, and always busy as usual, but in a good way. I mean, I've been leading several key accounts already. It's because of you. You have entrusted me those campaigns. And actually, I'm building the team of operations. The second is
Yes.
I'm also optimizing the team, trying to prepare the ops for scaling. So we are streamlining operations to level up how we support our clients. So pretty much it definitely keep my toes up.
Okay, I understand. So we did how hard it is for most CEOs to kind of just entrust accounts. And I feel like the very first time that you joined our team, we already knew that you were going to be able to handle yourself in front of clients. So first off, thank you so much for joining the team. And then I also understand, when you join the team, we do have processes, right? But then most of those are in this head and that guy's head, right there, Francis' head. And I think when you came in, you really started doing the documentation and even streamlining operations, right? So let's talk about streamlining
Diving
operations. And yeah, it's basically, making processes efficient. And it's either through automation, through optimizing workflows, or even, looking at your entire process and making sure that you're not making extra steps that's going to delay you or not give you the quality that you need for your customer. So I want to know, Don, since you started with Virtua, in the operations team, right? How important is it to optimize and streamline operations for you, for your work now?
Well, Penny, it's really, really important, and it will make our lives, much easier. Because basically, I am seeing several and a lot of importance with streamlining operations. First, we have removed the guesswork, because basically we were able to make or create clear processes. We were also able to reduce unnecessary steps, just like what you mentioned. And also it helped the team be more productive in a way that they work smarter and not harder. So I believe that the streamlining operations, it gives us the ability to, at the end of everything, would be driving business growth. We're also able to strengthen our relationship with the clients and
Yes.
improve the overall employee experience. So basically, our engagement with our employees are now higher than ever. So
Yeah.
I think that's the importance of streamlining operations, especially with Virtua.
So, Don, I like that what you said regarding helping the team work smarter and not harder. I think I've always been a fan of, you're productive because you work smart, not because you work hard. It doesn't mean that you're putting in the hours.
Yeah.
If you're putting in the hours, that means you're working hard. I'd rather see results. And if it takes you, if it takes you, a shorter amount of time to achieve it, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I think you're doing something really exciting for Virtua currently. That's actually part or a good example of what you're doing as part of making our process efficient. Can you share that to us and to the audience?
Well, yeah, with Virtua, actually, one of the areas that we looked into is the KPI data management process. So before, when I came in, everything was really manual. I mean, sometimes to a point, there are clients wherein we didn't
You mean a
even know
mess?
what's happening. I mean, it's not really like a mess. I mean, it's probably the way, the culture, how we did it before as an agency. But when we came in and established operations, I felt that there is a need for us to really streamline the KPI data process management for us to have more accurate basis of how we rate them, and it's also an assurance with the clients that we are at par with everything. So when we start looking into KPI data management, we noticed that everything is time consuming. It was time consuming to the point wherein we gather data, we put them in Excel, and then all of the formulas are there to compute for everything, and then we have message back and forth with the clients. Is this what they want to see and all? And it also made our performance evaluation and reporting slower than what we wanted. It's because we don't have the actual performance data that we need to rate the agent efficiently. Okay, so to address this, we optimized our process by integrating a centralized system through a web-based tool. So we call it the Looker Studio. And through the Looker Studio, we were able to create dashboard, and that will be also part of our Virtual Hub soon. So how it works, so we just simply upload the data there from the clients. Now, the dashboards that we have created, it has been designed by the team in which it will compute for the overall results and the cumulative results. So basically, it allows us to track performance better and more efficient. Now, we also made sure that the agents will have access, and the teams will have access to, their own performance, the up-to-date information whenever they need them. So as a result, I'm glad that we were able to upload 98% to 100% accuracy, and we also were able to at least streamline our performance management process, the evaluation. It's because we now have data to show the agents that this is the basis of our evaluation, your rating. And then from the team, from operations team, we were able to free up a lot of valuable time and invest it to a more strategic initiatives with Virtua.
Yeah. You know what? The first time you presented it to us, I was like, yes, this is what I was
Exactly
hoping
what
we
we're
do.
looking.
Yeah, this was like,
Thank you.
I can't remember the exact words I told you during that meeting, but it was exactly what I was hoping we would be doing for operations. Because
But the
it's really
sentiment was
not easy to
definitely
keep on,
yes.
keep on communicating with the client and then the agent, showing them both datas. And sometimes, some clients don't also give us the data. So by doing this, by you doing this with Virtua, at least now we have a consolidated space for all of the reporting where it's going to be the basis of, team performance and individual performance. Yeah, it was exactly what I was hoping we would do. So
The bit that I like is
Go ahead,
the bit
Francis.
that I like is the visibility of
Yes.
all of the data. It helps your agents to perform because they can see what they're doing,
Right.
and they also have the historical base that they can keep coming back over. So
Yeah.
being able to get that from the client was really, it's really good move. I will say, Don, I like what you've been doing, but big question, challenges. Regarding your experience with working for for companies who are in the startup phase, and we are more or less in that same area. Can you tell us what sort of challenges you experience, and like what's the biggest one on your list when it comes to challenges? Like when I came to Virtua and I said like, ooh, ew, and then
Or maybe not just virtual, like some of the startups that you work with. You're,
oh, not
because I
just
know
not
that you were
just.
the account manager before as well, so like you work
Yes,
with
and I
startups as well. So
and I
can you
even
share with
worked
us
with
some of the opportunity? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, and I even worked with different industries. For example, with financial industries, those who are in the loan aspect as a company, and
Financial.
other BPO actually, financial companies and other BPO outsourcing companies as well. For startups, I think the biggest challenge would be lack of clear processes. I mean, they haven't really gone through documenting everything. So if the processes are really not structured early on, and they really plan to scale, and because all of the business would like to really scale in the future, but without clearly putting a clear process, documenting the playbook, I mean, it's really become chaotic when they scale. So that, I think, lack of clear process is the biggest challenge of most of the startups.
Yeah, and I think if they're not able to document the process, it's probably because they're not sure like how to go about it. They haven't repeated it enough to actually document it, and so it does take time to document that as well. I do think that documenting processes, like having an actual documentation, you are also able to spot inefficient workflows because it's now like instead of it being in your head, it's now on paper. So can you tell us a
Yep.
little bit about how like inefficient workflows
Well,
for startups?
I agree with you. If you're doing exactly like things still on the manual side and with tons of back and forth, but basically it will really like slow you down. So if if you are able to create clear processes, there will be no roadblocks. And also you're also able to automate like a lot of tasks, and it can really speed things up. So there are a lot of ways actually that we can discuss for us to be able to create and how to start creating and documenting the playbook for operations.
No, see, the thing that I hate about the workflows is that when we started scaling up, I mean, that probably the only reason why documentation won't exist is when you're the only person who is managing that workflow, right?
Right. Hmm.
But the moment that you scale up, you just start delegating, so it's not just you. Things really can get stuck because you think you've told somebody something, but a lot of times it's only in your head. Like you assume that
Oh,
I must have told you that at some point, and that
Uh-huh.
they encounter problem A, and immediately it's a bottleneck. That's the part that we've been trying to, as soon as we started delegating and hiring more people, this workflow.
Hmm.
So yeah, and uh in the same line,
Hmm.
reliance on key people, which is something that we've been trying to steadily, like, not move away from, but make
Yeah.
sure that, because there's now like how many people uh in the organization that depend on each other, but sometimes you can rely too much on one person.
Hmm.
yeah.
uh yeah, because how is that gonna work, right? Like you're trying to do your job, and then you got people to do other key roles, but they still come back to you from time to time. That's not growth, right?
Well, absolutely. I agree to that point, Francis. The over reliance on key people, it's actually a common mistake. Um, it's all about trust. And when you delegate things or tasks to your people, you should be able to give them trust. You need to make sure that before giving also tasks and delegate things, you have to equip them with the right tools and the autonomy to really make decisions. Because at some point we need someone to be accountable, and we know that they are capable of doing such tasks. The business becomes more scalable, resilient, and future proof. So proper delegation, and if we know that we have given them the authority to make decisions, and I think you need to actually step back a bit and look into the bigger picture. Now, I think that would really resolve things in a manner that you still have a control, but at the same time, you can focus on other goals that are more important for you as a leader or even a business owner, and others would really work for you in a manner that you don't really have to really super closely supervise them.
When I think about startups and how Francis and I started, like, I think our first hire was a VA, right, Francis? This was just when we were starting. And I remember this is how we would tell our VA to do things. Can you XYZ? And that was it. And there was no agreement when it was going to be done. There was no tracking of what tasks the VA was going to do or the team member was going to do. And I feel like, especially at the very start, there's going to be a bit of you're still going to try to find your way in terms of task management. And I feel like most startups go through that. How do you think should startups improve?
Well, basically,
in terms of task management.
Yeah, if there is actually poor task management, it's a silent killer for the company. If we delegate tasks, it should be clear enough, and then we need to have somehow a way to monitor, to control things in terms of speed. In accomplishing the task, there should be like clear definition and roles, and to improve, there should be the use of task management tools. We have a lot. Actually, when I entered Virtua, I'm glad that we are using task management tools. Like, I know we started off with Monday.com, and then we eventually used other tools. Now we have a lot in the market, like ClickUp, Asana, Trello. So these tools keep the tasks organized, and we make sure that everyone knows what is expected. And it helps prevent deadlines from slipping through the cracks. And like, one day you'll just ask, how's this work? Is it already done? Is it 50% done? We don't know. It's because we don't have a way to track it. But using the management tools, it keeps us on track always, even though we don't really get to meet them and like call them or chat them. We just have to look at those tools, and everything is up
the important part. Yeah, I mean, the important part is being able to say who has the ball on a particular task, right? And it's not, it's not like, it's not a surprise to everybody, because sometimes that does tend to happen before. If you're just like, where are we on this? And then everybody looks around and says like, me? No, it was supposed to be you. No, I did this. And then, but when you look at a task management tool and you see that a task is assigned to X, and then it's been there, it squarely points to, who is accountable. But I also wanted to go back to Donn's point really about, to me, task management delegation in general is just, there's two types of people in this world. But there's two types of people who that you have to deal with. Is one who doesn't know how to effectively delegate. Doesn't know how to effectively delegate, and the other one is the one who's loath to delegate. Like, they want to, but they can't. They want to, but they can't. They want to, but I can do this better. I should delegate, but I want.
That has happened to me a lot of times, especially in the early times. Like, I want to, but I can't.
Yeah. You said your mind says you want to, but your body's not really ready to. But I was saying that without the intention of dredging up.
I fully admit that I was like that before. So don't worry.
But yes. No, I mean, the good thing about it is that, sometimes you also have to realize, like, I feel like, am I not delegating correctly, or do I just not want to delegate? But, you do come to a point where, you do come to a point where you have to recognize what the error is, right? Anyway, it was more a thought, but, but you did mention money.com. We moved away from that. I still get a lot of ads for it.
From
Um,
Monday.com, yeah, same.
Uh-huh. Me too.
yeah, but now we moved to ClickUp. ClickUp, the best man. Sorry, I thought.
You've been hit
It's in your
by
head
a
already.
ton of ads.
Well, I've
Both
been
Monday and
hit by the
ClickUp.
ads, but we think we used to use, but what are we using now? And then we're using ClickUp, and from then our projects have moved so much faster. Ad. You want to save your business? ClickUp.
ClickUp
But yes,
can sponsor us. I think Francis
I ClickUp.
has been no, just so to whoever is listening, this is not a sponsored podcast.
Yeah.
It's just this is how we go. Like
It's
if
not.
we think something, we just blurt it out. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the fact that we're telling them what our tools are and why
Yeah,
we think
yeah.
they're great.
Mhm.
But technology gaps, that's the one that really hinders growth. And you did mention this when you joined Virtua, so might as well focus a little more on that.
Well, when I joined Virtua, I noticed that we have a lot of great talents. Like they're really highly skilled, but there were like few technical gaps wherein it affects an aspect in our business, which is somehow the decision making. So we tackled data management and reporting a while ago, right? So, but we leverage on automation, and we were able to create faster responses in the evaluation forms and performance management tasks. So this allows us to be more credible in giving ratings rather to our employees. So this is very important as well to our clients because they can see how their team is growing, and they can even see the team's trends in terms of performance. So automation is really an aspect that is really important for us to be able to close that gap in terms of performance, and that really resolved a lot of things in Virtua.
I mean, you know what? We keep talking about performance management. It is all part of operations. Actually, it's also part of ensuring that your employees know where they're at and know and for us to be able to also recognize their efforts, because performance management is not just, hey, you did not do this. It's not all corrective action. It's also letting people know that they're doing a good job, these are their stats. And so having that performance monitoring or performance management, having those evals, it's gonna make their it's gonna give them clarity on where they stand, right?
Right.
And in terms of
A lot of
technology gaps,
times.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say a lot of times. What I've seen is, here's what you did wrong, and I admit that I might be digging a little too far here. When reports are more, here's what you did wrong, here's what you need to do better, but it doesn't focus on the how. Like what behavior should you stop? What's the one thing you should start and or continue? It wasn't really that, right? So it wasn't helping them improve so much as telling them you need to improve, but not telling them the how to. Was and I like that. What we're doing now is, I mean, what we're doing now is actually moving in the right direction. So Don, I love that cup. One last thing. Based on your experience working with other companies, and what do you think is the biggest red flag for failure when they start scaling up?
Well, basically, for the biggest mistake would be just like what we have discussed, not delegating tasks early on. And I also mentioned that we really have to step back and look at the bigger picture, because you cannot really do it yourself as an owner. And I remember telling you, Francis, hey Francis, I think you really have to focus more on other stuff, because you have already handed over this task to certain key individuals. You start building your team and processes from day one to set yourself for a long-term growth. So for those who are really trying to scale up, they really have to consider delegating the tasks and know who to delegate these tasks, because it's not just simply delegating. You have to make sure that the person you're delegating the task to is really capable of accomplishing the task.
I think I've always believed that like for you to start delegating, the easiest one to delegate would be the ones that are like repetitive tasks.
Repetitive, time-consuming.
Time-consuming, repetitive, because you probably already know how it's supposed to go, and you can start documenting and then delegate it to someone. Delegating it to someone, but it people also need to figure out also need to know that it's not just. There are two ways to go about it, right? There are two ways to go about automating repetitive task. Either you delegate it to someone so that they can do it, and they're going to be responsible for that. The other way to go about it is use automation. So can you, how do you recommend startups in how they should start automating their tasks?
Penny, there are a lot of simple tools to use. They're out in the market. And so, for example, we have different types of CRM. So one of the famous CRMs would be HubSpot. We also have ClickUp, wherein we do the task management, and then just also use like a central communication tool. Just for example, Slack, and others use Skype or whatever communication tools are available.
Skype.
That's too old, but anyway, I've experienced using Skype as a way of communicating with not just with your internal team, but with the clients too.
The nostalgia of a Skype call. Quack, 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 quack.
It's
that
too
was
old.
so
But
far.
they know my
from
age
what
already.
Skype sounds like. But
Which one was
all
it?
three of us have used Skype.
The nostalgia of the trauma when a Skype call comes in.
But sorry for cutting you off, Don. Just Skype. But you were mentioning Skype for communication purposes, right? So can you go back?
Yeah,
what
so
you were
now
saying.
we're using Slack. I mean, it's the modern tool now for communication. It's really good to have these tools, and this will save us a lot of time, and we can actually focus on other things that are more important, like growth of the company. So these, in the long run, if you're looking at cost, others might think that, hey, it's like too costly to sign up and buy a seat for each of the tools, but in the long run, they're really cost effective. It's because time saved is equal to focus on strategy, which really pays off big time.
My thoughts regarding whether it's free, whether you go for, because a lot of apps have free versions, right?
Yeah.
Like most of them have it, and it's part of it's for the lack of the better term,
It's adoption. It's adoption. It's upsell.
Yes, exactly.
I just
and I
want to
think,
tell as well.
go ahead.
Sorry. I remember when I was still handling sales before, we tried not to really sign up for any tools yet. But I mean, we were able to make use of those tools for free.
Yes.
And then we have free version wherein we can still benefit from it. But in the long run, if you want to have more efficiency and they'd like to have more features to be used, and probably that's the time wherein we need to really think of signing up.
Yeah.
As long as you can see value for money. As long as you can see value for money. See, I know the hardest thing is for people that, why do I need to spend $20 a month for something when you have the clunkier Excel, like the Excel, we can do Excel timesheets rather than a CRM, and then eventually you'll realize that, and those are usually still doing those boring old Excel timesheets. Click up.
Oh my God, friends, just stop it with the ads.
Did
you binge watch YouTube last night and you're just all of the ads?
Well, unfortunately, unfortunately, that's the reason why I'm probably sold. I'm about to be sold on taking the premium YouTube version, so I can stop watching that.
I know, right?
But you do have a point, right? Like, people will always like it's what do you call this? Like, people will always try to stick to what they know. And so even that hurdle of trying to use technology or to use these apps, they would have to have an actual business need for them to use the app and for them to get out of their Excel sheet and figure out and see that, okay, this app is gonna work better for us. It has all the bells and whistles. It actually now, like for example, for HubSpot, for us, it's not just for sales, it's not just for the CRM, it's also for marketing, it's also for ops, it's also for finance. So everyone knows where like the status of the client, right? Just the Excel file, mind you, I'm not a fan of Google Docs in a sense of like putting all of the documenting like processes there, because I cannot find anything in Google Docs. But yeah, it does streamline
The
things in a
file
sense
management
of,
system is sucks. Yeah.
yeah, because everyone can collaborate. Like, I think that's a big part of the softwares that we're using right now. ClickUp, you can collaborate with people. HubSpot, you can collaborate with people as well. Slack, like, of course, right?
Of
course,
course.
it's a communication tool. Of course, you're able to talk to people. But yeah,
Yeah, but just to add to that, just the tiniest bit. Even then, the challenges, adoption. Cost. See, regardless of what, even sometimes you can see the value of it, but it's money out of the pocket. It's money out of your pocket, and that hurts sometimes to do, especially if you're not rolling in, if you're not rolling in money. If you're it's hard to, you're watching everything that flows out, right? Be adoption, that sometimes you're like, guys, let's do this, and it's going to cost a bit, but it's going to make us so efficient, and then like out of 50 people in your organization, only 5 people are really using it. Like, that hurts too,
Right.
yeah, that hurts too. So like, why did we do all of this? And you say, oh, we still use Messenger because we find it more effective. Like, god damn it.
Right, and I remember you guys always reminding the team
we still use
to.
Messenger, right, Francis, for work stuff. I'm kidding. But
Bye.
you do have a point there. I think one tip that I can give in terms of adoption for tech is you need to demo it for everyone, and actually someone has to kind of lead the adoption for it. And when I say lead the adoption for it, find out how to get the demo, have some rules on how everyone is going to use it, be the point person, and then also look at the adoption, like probably a month after, 2 months after, just so we know that everyone is actually doing it. I think previously our weakness was that, okay, here you go. It's like I felt that it speaks for itself. Just use it, like and it doesn't happen that way. Like software adoption doesn't happen that way. So that's my tip on that.
Yeah, and actually, I agree to that, Penny, because I remember you always, reminding the team to use a new tool that we have just purchased. Basically, it can also be part of the onboarding. So once you assign a person to train the rest of the internal team, for example, and then once a new person comes in, then that person will also train during the onboarding. So at the onset of their relationship with Virtua, they know what is expected in terms of use of these tools.
That's actually a very, very good point. I think if you do not include it in onboarding, most of the time, especially because our team is fully remote, right? Like they're just gonna be lost. They're just gonna be like doing guesswork on how we're actually using these apps. But
and you can tell who's not taking to the onboarding, because like, have you started using this and that? Like, sorry, no, I haven't looked into it yet. They don't know where it is.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah, well, I don't know. Usually, it just hurts. I just keep coming back to delegating. The hardest part is really how to communicate the how to make it trickle down. How that we want to be effective, but there will always be people resistant to change, right? So
But
let's
I
just
think
say,
that's the role of us as leaders is get the buy-in,
change management.
change management, right? Like it's part of it.
So, I guess one of the last things I want to make sure I ask from you is talking about. I want you to talk about documenting processes because we will all say it's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to keep up and keep updated, right? But I think mostly the hardest thing is to actually start, like between you and I, Penny, right? It took a while to actually get the willpower to say, write it down.
Yeah.
But so how can startups create simple and effective SOPs?
Well, I believe, yeah, and I agree that it's really hard to start documenting processes as aside from the will to do so, it's because probably it's driven by you don't know where to start. So if
True.
in a business like outsourcing, our main focus is, of course, our clients. And for us to be able to start documenting SOPs in a simple manner, we need to create first the customer journey or the client journey mapping. I mean, I've been really
Okay.
highlighting this with Virtua because you know where they start, like from acquisitions, from marketing as a qualified lead or sales qualified lead. Then we know already the touch points. Like, you know, we have several workflows with these departments, and we know how to align the SOPs designed on based on the real needs of our clients. So it makes things simpler, more efficient, and ultimately it has a lot of impact to their experience to be seamless, because we're basing it from, you know, every touch points that we have from the customer journey map. So that would be, I think, the very first item that they need to really pinpoint, like when do we start communicating with the clients, and then their journey up to the end of like retention and keeping the business with these clients, and even offboarding. So we have to like really process at the end of the relationship. Unfortunately, if it comes to an end, then there are also processes related to that. So if we start off with, you know, from the start of their relationship to the end of their relationship, we can create these SOPs perfectly.
That's actually a very good point, especially because, I mean, our company, like, or any company for that matter, the customers are the most important people. And we want to make sure that their experience is consistent, it's efficient, it's not like they're waiting on something and then internally we're not sure who is supposed to be talking to the customer, right? Or what's the next step. And another thing is, if we don't document the processes for clients, most of the time we will forget something. And now it kind of makes the experience chaotic for the customer. Yeah.
And the last thing we want is to have them experience any form of distress, especially not chaos, right?
Yes.
And I guess I'll just add it to what we've been telling Don, that you know, we started from word of mouth, which means it was actually the performance that you know, our earlier successes and performances is what's driving clients to recommend us to other people. And it's getting harder to sort of, how do you do, like the copy paste
Yes.
the
template
experience
yeah.
unless you're hopping from one client to another yourself and duplicating the process. So we need to be able to duplicate that success
I agree.
to other people. You know, like I need to transfer myself. So yes,
like right now with Virtua, how do you think we're addressing that? Like duplicating ourselves. So how do you think we're addressing that with Virtua?
Well, for with Virtual, when it comes to sometimes I really to be honest, at first I was overwhelmed with, you know, really working with you, both of you. Like, I'm working with not just one boss, like two CEOs and co-owners, and it's really hard for me to adapt, like, you know, like a single or probably like a single set of skill set of a personality rather in leading, you know, operations, because I want to continue your legacy your legacy
we're
but at the
alive,
same
Don.
time,
We're alive.
appreciate you. We're still alive, Don. Don't kill us off. I absolutely understand what you're saying about because it's word of mouth, right? That's how we grew Virtua. Of course, it's going to be based on the experience that the customer, our customers have had with us, and you want to duplicate that experience to any incoming customer. So I understand the pressure because Francis and I are perfect.
I understand it. That's why what I'm telling you guys is that, even though it's hard to like really have two bosses, but when we started to document, everything, especially with operation side, and you even like created there was a point in time the three of us are talking in a meeting. You are creating and documenting what Francis is saying, what you're saying in terms of SaaS playbook. And then I was like really learning a lot from you. And then documenting that process, I'm really getting, good points from those documents and apply it to myself. And then when we created a whole playbook for operations, then that's actually a basis wherein I think this is Penny and Francis' way. But at the same time, it's not really like putting you in or like involving you in every step in operation. So, the documenting is really like a good start off in transferring or like copying you guys to how we operate as a business,
because
as a company.
our way is the only way, Don.
I know, right?
Well, we personally we think our way is the best, but I'm not sure broadcasting that.
No, I'm kidding. Francis, you saw my face. I was kidding.
I did.
But
I
thank you so much
know.
for saying, you've never told us this before, but thank you so much for saying that. I hope that you were not so pressured too much about trying to do that, but I also do understand the goal, right? Because again, word of mouth, these people know us, these people know that what we've given them thus far, and I feel like the operations playbook that you did is actually adding to what we've done before, because there are portions in this playbook that we've never thought of, like business continuity plans. Like previously we've never, Francis and I have never thought of that, and just having.
We kind of have. We thought we've talked about it in
BCP?
various little ways. No, BCPs in terms of not. No, again, we know what our BCPs were. Power before. Let's do
Backups,
Sans 14 backups, additional laptops, additional battery packs, additional chargers and stuff. And we've communicated that when it was a smaller team. But again, as the team became bigger, I feel like we've either stopped or could not continue to communicate it. That's why, like I said, we were adding clients and then we were adding more people, and it's just that there's some people, as much as we want to, could not have actual FaceTime with. So how are you? How are you? How are you? When it was you, me, and then three other people, it's easier to, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what you're supposed to do. It's important to be this and that, and then say whatever to the client, right? But you can do that for three people, but not for 50 or 100.
Yeah.
So playbook, I think we definitely did is it a blueprint or a carbon copy?
A blueprint
Xerox
is
star
kind of
cells.
a good word for it. Blueprint, maybe a best practices book.
But yes, so I mean, it's an interesting introspection of of how things are, how things are happening now. So very interesting conversation with you, Don. So I guess one thing, can we ask for your very quick recap of your expert advice? Not recap, your expert advice on how to keep things running smoothly operations wise.
Well, basically, after we're able to streamline operations and the processes, we need to have regular process audits. So it will keep us, able to adjust the workflows if needed be, and it should be based on results as well. And if we think that the results are favorable, then why change things, right? But the regular process audits is really important, and that will almost cover every aspect in operations. Second is what I've learned from Penny, actually, is always have a mindset of scalability. So when you do things, when you create and design processes, it should include growth. It should always include the growth mindset. And I think that should be like, the basic operational success formula for me.
So always thinking we're growing. Like,
Yeah.
I like the point on the process audit. I feel like some people think that, okay, I've already documented the process and that's said I should forget it. And as your company grows, or whether it's going up or down, some of these processes will have to be changed. Could be internal factors, could be external factors. So definitely like the process. Plus, I remember way back in Contactually when it's a simple task, right? Deleting customer's account, a user's account.
Okay.
And previously it was just a simple delete button, type the name, and that was it. And then eventually it became, before you delete, have them fill out this form, yada 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 yada. And auditing a process makes you look at your processes right now and see which ones are getting too complicated or which ones can be simplified. And that just brings I have a distinct memory of that, because sometimes people just keep on piling on processes and parts of the process and not really thinking simple.
No, there's also
process.
and there's also instances where you keep, like for example, in the interest of growth, if you're not auditing this, you're like, I remember this. So just the experience is recent, but having product feedback, for example, right? So I remember, so one product, which is great because you get to talk to, to talk to the product team and say, this is what we think is going on. And then the odd thing is now, because it's a larger organization, you get to see like, we now have a product council. What is this meeting for? It's like, it's a once-a-month thing where you talk to product about improvements. And now there's a third council. It's like, at some point, there's redundancy here, but it's sometimes the problem is when it's a larger organization and you have three people like all wanting the same thing, which is great. But you create the redundancies. Is like you need to point out like these things are all actually doing the same thing.
The same thing, yeah.
Just with different people, but with roughly, wanting the same outcome. So we need to get rid of that. And I understand to your point that sometimes things get complicated. The other thing that I found interesting about what you said, Donn, is sometimes this is a process, but you're not listening to feedback about the process, that there's a lot of complaints regarding it, but you're not changing it. So the audit is, no, chef's kiss. I like that. I like that. And, I guess the only problem when it comes to, from organizations that are both small, and I'm going to go to when organizations are big. When it's small, the problem is maintaining the documentation is everybody's job, or whoever had the gall to start it in the first place. And then sometimes the problem is when you that's true, because you can't really afford in the beginning to have somebody who's like, we're hiring you specifically for documentation. But when the organization is now large, sometimes you can afford the documentation team.
Yeah.
You can afford the documentation team, and now it becomes harder because you now have these people who are consistently updating these documents because that's their job, right? But sometimes they do it in such a way that they're not letting people know that this document has changed. See what break, especially when it's breaking.
Cascading the information that or there have been updates on the specific document. It's also a challenge. Yeah.
Yes, like you're doing something today and then tomorrow it's changed without. Especially if it's just breaking changes. If they're making minor changes, sure. Yeah. But when they're breaking changes, or like I've always felt like, by the way, we're changing how we do things. So yes, just my little take. And now, I was gonna say, it's a perfect segue to go to what's your take with Donn. I like this.
This is when you use your ad voice, okay? this is when you use your ad voice. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let's say that again. And now we move on to what's your take with Donn?
Okay.
Okay, so this is the segment done that we ask you, our guests, one question, and we also ask the audience this question. So the question for today's episode is: what's one thing businesses should stop doing to improve operations?
Okay. For me, one thing that they should stop doing, especially for startups, is stop relying on outdated and manual processes. That's it, I guess. They should actually like improve on and open to changes. Don't be afraid. Search.
Thank you
I
so
think
much,
that's it.
Donn, for your take. And so we want to ask everyone out there, what do you think businesses should stop doing to improve operations? Please let us know. Drop a comment or send us a message.
Yes. Drop a comment, leave us a message. So, I guess it's time to. I always feel like when you realize that it's time to wrap things up and you've had, like a conversation. First, I want to say thank you so much, Donn, for taking the time.
Thank you so much,
to
Donn.
It's a pleasure.
to join us today. You've been awesome. You've been dropping, nugget after nugget of information.
true.
I'm sure everyone will appreciate hearing your thoughts and insights. Everybody walks away happier, wiser,
I
ready
hope,
to
and,
scale.
it's a
Smarter.
privilege.
Okay,
It's a
there you go.
privilege to share things and know my for them to pick my brain. I mean, it's not just my brain. I've also learned a lot from you. So thank you for guesting
Oh,
here.
thanks, Donn.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Donn.
We
Thanks for
appreciate
sharing that.
that. And and thank you for giving everything that you have to and bringing all that you are to Virtua.
Yes.
That's definitely greatly appreciated. So yes. I'm going to say for those of you out there, if you want to follow Don's socials, we'll be dropping that somewhere here. And I guess that is it today for our episode of business. But just so you know, the conversation doesn't end here.
Let's keep the buzz going. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Send us your thoughts and let's talk business.
And remember, you can find business on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, and YouTube. And so, please listen anytime, anywhere. Listen, even if you don't have the time to listen. Listen.
Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep making your mark. See you in the next episode.
See ya. Thanks again, Donn. You've been
Thank
amazing.
you,
Thanks,
Penny.
Donn.
Thank you, Francis.